This is the DREAME L40 Ultra Robot Vacuum. After spending some time with it, I thought it might be helpful to share what I have noticed so far. I have used a few robot vacuums over the years, and I usually come away thinking they are convenient, but not quite enough to replace regular cleaning if you have pets, carpets, and the kind of daily mess that shows up in kitchens and entryways. This one got a lot closer to what I actually want from a robot, which is simple. I want it to run on a schedule, not get lost, not smear dirty water around, and not need my attention every single day. If your home is mostly hard floors with some rugs, or you have pets, or you just do not want to think about vacuuming and mopping all the time, this is the kind of setup that makes sense. If you live in a tiny space with almost no floor clutter, you might not need something this involved. But in a normal lived-in home with furniture, thresholds, and random stuff that ends up on the floor, I found the overall system helpful. What makes it feel different in daily use is not one single feature. It is the combination of strong vacuuming, a mop that can lift when it hits carpet, and a base station that handles a lot of the messy maintenance. I do not mind a robot vacuum running. What I hate is dealing with a dirty mop pad by hand or remembering to empty and rinse things constantly. This one reduced that part a lot. In terms of how it looks and feels, the robot itself is the familiar round shape, low enough that it can get under my couch and a lot of my cabinets. On top, there is a raised sensor housing, which does add height, so it will not fit under extremely low furniture. The finish is clean and simple, and the buttons on top are easy to press without feeling flimsy. The base station is the bigger commitment. It is tall and it takes visual space, so you need to be okay with that. In my place, I ended up moving it once because my first spot looked fine, until I realized I was noticing it every time I walked by. The base station has separate tanks for clean water and dirty water. In real life, that means I refill clean water every few days, and I dump dirty water on a similar schedule. The dirty water tank is the part that tells the truth about your floors. The first time I emptied it after a couple of full runs, it was not subtle. If you are sensitive to smells, you will want to stay on top of it and rinse the tank occasionally. I did, and it stayed fine. Setup was straightforward. I installed the Dreamehome app, connected the robot to my wireless network, and let it do a mapping run. It mapped my main floor quickly, and the map looked accurate enough that I did not need to babysit it. I renamed rooms, set no-go areas, and adjusted a couple of boundaries where it was a little too optimistic about squeezing between chair legs. The scheduling is where it started fitting into my routine. I run the kitchen and entryway more often than the bedrooms. In the app, it was easy to set that up without turning it into a project. On days when I am cooking more, I will send it back just to the kitchen for a quick pass, and it does what I ask without wandering around first. For vacuuming performance, what matters is what it picks up on the first pass and whether it leaves obvious trails. On hard floors, it handled crumbs, tracked in dirt and pet hair well. Along edges, it did better than the older robots I have used, mainly because it actually reaches into the perimeter more consistently. Corners are still corners, and you will not get the same result as a person using a dedicated corner tool, but I saw less buildup in those spots over the week. On carpet and rugs, it picked up more than I expected, especially the fine pet hair that usually gets left behind. I have one medium pile rug that tends to confuse cheaper robots, and this one stayed on it without getting stuck. The important part for me is the mop behavior around rugs. It lifted the mop pads when it detected carpet, and in my testing, it did not drag wet pads across my rugs, which is the thing I worry about most with combo units. Mopping is always the tricky part to talk about, because robot mops are not doing the same job as you on your hands and knees with pressure. What I saw here was consistent light scrubbing that kept the floor feeling better day to day. It handled dried footprints and light kitchen spots. For sticky spills that had been sitting, I still had to spot clean, but it did reduce how often I felt like I needed a full manual mop. It also washes its mop pads at the base. You can hear it when it is doing that. The vacuuming itself is fairly quiet for what it is, and I can work while it runs. The mop washing step is louder and a little squeaky, and if you are in the same room, it is noticeable. The good news is it does not last long, and then it goes back out. One feature I did not think I would care about is the headlight. When my living room is dim, it turns on and it actually seems to help it avoid missing dusty areas under furniture. It also makes it easier for me to see where it is going when I glance over. Obstacle avoidance was solid in my home, with the usual real-life caveat that you still need to do basic prep. If I leave charging cables on the floor, I am asking for trouble. With shoes, chair legs, and general clutter, it navigated without constant rescues. I also tested it near a staircase, and it did not take any scary chances. I would still keep the sensors clean, because dust buildup on any robot can make it act weird over time. Pet owners will probably care about hair tangles. With the standard brush, I did get some hair wrapped up after a few days, and I had to pull it out by hand. That is normal for me with most robots, but it is still something you have to stay aware of. Once I cleaned it regularly, it stayed manageable. If you have long hair in the home, check the brush weekly at least, because that is the difference between smooth daily runs and a robot that starts leaving hair trails. The app features are useful when they stay out of the way. I used room-based cleaning, schedules, and suction and mop adjustments depending on the room. I also tried the camera feature a few times. It is not something I need for cleaning, but I will admit it was handy to check on my pets when I was out. If you care about privacy, you will want to read the settings carefully and only turn on what you actually plan to use. Living with it day to day, the maintenance is mostly water tanks and occasional brush cleaning. I do not have to think about mopping pads every run, and that is a big deal. The base station size is the main trade-off. You are paying with space. The other trade-off is noise during mop washing, and the fact that no robot mop is going to replace deep cleaning when you have a real mess. Overall, my impression is that the DREAME L40 Ultra is for someone who wants their floors maintained, not someone expecting a robot to handle every possible disaster. In my home, it kept the baseline level of cleanliness higher, which meant I spent less time reacting to mess and more time just doing occasional spot cleaning. That is the real value for me. If you have been using a basic robot vacuum and you are tired of emptying it constantly, or you want mopping that you will actually keep enabled because the cleanup is not annoying, this setup makes daily cleaning easier to live with. It is not perfect, but it has been reliable in my routine, and I have not had to babysit it the way I have with cheaper models. If you found this video helpful, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with any questions, or tell me what your biggest pain point is with robot vacuums in your home. Thank you for watching.